We were at some absolutely abnormal levels of negative EBITDA. It was more about creating a great.
Hi, welcome to the Middle Manager Mastery, the show that helps managers to move from execution to influence through stronger EQ, high productivity, and much bigger impact. I'm your host, Shruti Rustagi, and each week I sit down with senior corporate leaders, founders, and experts to unpack the tools that move you from being a manager to a leader. Real conversations, honest insights, no fluff. Welcome. Hi, Thomas. So excited to have you.
Hi, Shruti. Good to be here and good to meet you in person too. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Thomas, how about we start with you telling us a little bit about your journey and your long, distinguished career, and then we'll take it from there.
Well, just as an introduction, my name is Thomas Verghese. I have spent about 45 years in industry, and I had retired actually in April 25. I never thought I'm going to work again, but life takes strange turns, and I suddenly found myself in another new assignment, more advisory, but certainly a very busy one. So, my background is I was born and brought up in Delhi. I studied at the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. I did my BTech in textile engineering. That time it used to be a 5-year course. Passed out and joined at that time what was the best company I could join instead of going for an MBA. It was a very elite scheme, one of its kind, and the forerunner to all management training schemes in India. So they preceded the IIMs and they preceded the Tata Administrative Service too. So it was a very, very prestigious job. I was very happy that I landed the job because I really didn't want to study anymore. So it was good. I spent 9 years with that group. It was a very wonderful learning phase of my life. And then I joined a couple of other companies with some very challenging assignments. But the real long tenure for me was when I joined the Aditya Birla Group in 1999, early 99. And I stayed with them for almost 26 years. So really the story, the last 26 years have been replete with a lot of learning, a lot of diverse, very different kind of sectors of the economy. I turned out to be something like a troubleshooter for Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla, and I was put in very different environments. So I joined the group as the chief marketing officer of the pulp and fiber business, went on to be the chief manufacturing officer of one of our largest plants in not only pulp and fiber, but also in the group at that time, a very difficult plant. And then came back to Bombay to manage pulp business in 3 countries, Canada, India, and Laos. And then moved into another very transformative phase of my life, which was managing Mr. Birla's food and grocery retail, which was the supermarkets and hypermarkets, as the managing director of Aditya Birla Retail Limited. That was a great learning experience, and I guess I got all my white hair at that point in time, and also my diabetes. And then I moved back into my core area of textiles, which I managed for the next almost 13 years for the group, which was a business spread out over 8 countries with 12 manufacturing plants. And that again gave me a great experience of cross-cultural business transformation, cross-cultural people issues. The legal and regulatory environment were different in different countries, though they are now converging, but it was a great learning experience. I retired in April 25, and now I have a new role as the advisor to the chairman and managing director of one of India's most iconic textile companies called Raymond. And Raymond is now a 100-year-old company. Very few companies I've seen in my lifetime which have lasted 100 years. And I'm very happy to be here. So that's by way of a very short introduction. I've done a lot of acquisitions in my career, including the first Aditya Birla Group acquisition in China in 2005. I did many more acquisitions thereafter, Turkish company called Soktas, a Spanish company called Pyrotex. I divested a lot of companies. In fact, early on in my last stint, I closed down our Egyptian operation in Alexandria. Was a great learning because we took a big hit on the closure, but it had to be done. And it was very complicated because Egypt was itself a country going through transition and not easy to close down a company there. So anyway, and did a lot of divestments too in terms of selling off companies. So have had a mixed career looking at various things, but it's been a great and exciting journey.
Absolutely, Thomas. And I think you and I had interacted while you were part of the whole textiles business. And so, yes, I've seen portions and sneak peeks of it. So, this is so distinguished and this is so diverse as well, and such a long. I would love to actually sort of put you on the spot and ask you one of your favorite transformation stories, if you will.
So actually, there are many. I'll just give a very brief insight into those. When I came into the group as the chief marketing officer, I did not realize the extent of pain that the group was going through because Grasim, one of its flagship companies, was the main cash cow. And for a period of 5 years, from 94 to 99 or 98, they were going south. And I did not realize the importance of Grasim and its being the only cash cow in the group at that time, early, because those were early days, as to how important the turnaround of Grasim's pulp and fiber business was. So one of the first transformative journey I did was transform and turn around the pulp and fiber business. Did it quite fast too, and made it into a leading cellulose player globally. In fact, it became number one, but it sort of dropped down a bit now. But it continues after the transformation to be the cash cow and continuously generating money for the group. Of course, now there are many other businesses that are also generating money, but we never looked back. Our main competition for viscose at that time was polyester, and polyester was priced at almost half of viscose, and it was eating into the market share of viscose between 94 and 99. Happy to say that our transformation was sustainable and permanent. In the last 2 decades, we have grown at 8% annually, and polyester, which was the new technology, new age fiber, has grown only at 4.5%. So I think it's been a great journey, and that was the first transformative journey. The second transformative journey is my favorite journey, which I will talk to you a little bit more about, which was the transformation of Harrier. I will come back to that when I want to talk about it, which was really an impossible challenge. The third one was getting in and managing the retail business, food and grocery, in the early heydays of modern retail in India. So I'm talking about the period between 2006, 7 to 2012, 13, which was early days in retail. There was a lot of hype about modern retail in India. Everybody wanted to have a piece of the cake or a slice of the cake, and we were no different. We started off with very ambitious plans for opening supermarkets and hypermarkets in India. And so that was a great journey. We focused initially on expansion of the network. We came to a point where we had about 2,200 stores in a just period of 3-4 years. And then the focus shifted from just revenue expansion or store expansion to profitability. So we did a great turnaround there in terms of profitability. We were at some absolutely abnormal levels of negative EBITDA. We brought it down to almost a break-even level. Unfortunately, I left that business a bit early, and moved. Chairman wanted me to move back to textile, so I moved back to textile. Unfortunately, that business post that early period of turnaround never really turned around. The losses continued, and eventually it was sold to Amazon a few years in 2018 or 19. So anyway, that was the third story of transformation. And of course, in the textile business, which was a legacy business, mostly with very old plants, modern plants, good technology, but old plants. The whole story was a very bit different. It was more about creating a great business performance in terms of whether it was in terms of revenue, but more so in terms of profitability and more so in terms of cash flows and working capital. So I was very happy that when I relinquished charge in 23, because I actually relinquished charge as a business head in 23 of that business, I really took it to the highest level possible in terms of profitability, cash flows. My businesses were working on negative working capital, which is considered impossible in the textile space. But we managed to do it. That's why at the outset, I told you that nothing is impossible. You just got to study and leverage and learn and put in place all the work on all the levers that can make you a negative working capital company. So these were the transformation journeys. One was, of course, stabilizing a old business and making it very profitable with good cash flows and a very good working capital situation. But the real, let's say, test of all my character happened in this one stint.
It was a great story because there's so much to take away from it. I was just thinking about if you were to pick the top three learnings from this whole experience, because there's a lot that you did there. It was not just limited to building those personal relationships at, across different stakeholders. It was also not just about understanding people and spending those hours like you talked. It's a lot of very different things and, strategies that you applied. So if you were to pick like top three learnings, what would those be from this whole experience for you?
Listening intently to your people, number one. Engaging with them at all levels.
Hmm.
And third, but not the least, walking the talk,
Hmm.
being
So,
there with them.
yes. Thank you for tuning in. If something landed for you today, try it this week and tell me how it went. If this episode helped, share it with someone who you think needs it. Leave us a rating so that this show reaches everyone it's meant to reach and it's meant for. Till then, keep building the influence, keep driving the results, and keep having the impact. See you in the next episode. Thomas.